What is up guys, Jarv here, back today jumping into Destiny 2. Now in today's video we're taking a look at an archetype of weapon that Bungie have completely forgotten about. We haven't seen a brand new one of these weapons added to the game since Shadowkeep, and with the current meta inside Season of the Lost, it's a massive misstep and these could have been one of the strongest weapons in this entire season. If you want to find out more, then be sure to stick around and enjoy the video. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to leave a comment and rating down below, and remember to subscribe for more Destiny 2 content. We are fast approaching 100,000 subscribers here on the channel, and just over 70% of the viewers on the channel aren't currently subscribed, so be sure to hit that red button and ring that bell to make sure you don't miss an update. But without further delay guys, let's jump into the video. Now, upon the launch of Season of the Lost, we saw a mass amount of new weapons added to the game. These were either brand new via the Astral Alignment or reissued as world drops or even as part of the Prophecy dungeon. Now, alongside all those new weapons in Season of the Lost, we got a massive rework for fusion rifles. Now, when you combine this rework alongside the seasonal artifact, this makes fusion rifles one of the strongest weapons in this entire season. Another archetype of weapon that's also very strong in Season of the Lost are pulse rifles. High impact pulse rifles are very strong, not just inside the Crucible, but also in PvE content too. With Grandmaster Nightfalls being here right now, pulse rifles are some of the best when it comes to stunning unstoppable champions. Now, when you think of legendary pulse rifles, there are in fact 5 different archetypes of pulse rifles inside Destiny 2. These are rapid fire frames, lightweight frames, adaptive frames, aggressive frames, and high impact frames. Now, the archetype of weapon that Bungie have completely forgotten about in Destiny 2 is the aggressive frame archetype when it comes to pulse rifles. As things currently stand inside Destiny 2, there are only 4 weapons that fall inside this category, and only one of those is not currently sunset. Now, the first one we're going to take a look at, and probably the OG when it comes to aggressive frame pulse rifles, is the Go Figure. This was introduced in Forsaken and became the absolute king when it came to the Last Wish raid, especially when we were under leveled and you needed that hard hitting damage weapon that could take combatants out from distance. Now, massive shout out to Astacross, the legend himself, for letting me use this footage. I'm sure you know who he is, and if you don't, be sure to check out his channel, and I'll leave the link to that down in the video description below. Now, the main difference between our high impact pulse rifles and our aggressive frame pulse rifles is the fact that these are hard-hitting full burst weapons. These fire at 450 rounds per minute, and most of these weapons come with additional damage dealing perks. What made Go Figure so good is it had excellent barrel options, insane amounts of range, and also an excellent stability stat. And when you combine that with things like ricochet rounds, outlaw, and either rampage or kill clip, you can already see why this was one of the most popular aggressive frame pulse rifles back in the day. Now, the Go Figure was introduced in Season 4 and was sunset in Season 12, so it had a lifespan of less than a year inside Destiny 2. Now, this weapon uses primary ammo and sits in a kinetic slot, but if you're looking for an energy variant of this exact weapon, then a great alternative to the Go Figure was the Right Side of Wrong. Now, much like the Go Figure, this was introduced back in Forsaken and had almost identical perks. The main differences here is this had magazine options instead of barrel options and had slightly less range and stability. It could perform pretty much the same tasks when it came to PvE, and whilst it used primary ammo, it dealt solar damage and sat in the energy slot. Now, you used to be able to farm this weapon from a lost sector over on NEXUS, but once again, much like the Go Figure, whilst this was introduced in Season 4, this was sunset back in Season 12. Now, when it comes to aggressive frame pulse rifles, the Right Side of Wrong was in fact the only elemental aggressive frame pulse rifle we've ever had in Destiny 2, with all the other weapons in the archetype all being kinetic. Now, speaking of kinetic aggressive frame pulses again, this brings us on to one of the most popular aggressive frame pulse rifles ever in Destiny 2, and this was the Blast Furnace. Now, much like the Go Figure, this was a kinetic weapon that used primary ammo. This one was introduced in Season of the Forges back in Season 5, and much like the Go Figure and the Right Side of Wrong, this was also sunset in Season 12. And when it comes to weapon stats, the Blast Furnace is absolutely solid across the board. It has a huge range stat of 81, the highest on any aggressive frame pulse, a solid stability stat of 68, and a recoil stat of 65. Now, any recoil stat that finishes in 0 or 5, it has the opportunity to have a perfectly vertical recoil. Now, the Blast Furnace could roll with short and medium range scopes, and also had things like Outlaw and Feeding Frenzy in the first column, and Kill Clip and Rampage once again in the final column. Now, the thing that made the Blast Furnace stand out is this was a farmable weapon. As a result of the forges and the bounties associated with it, you could directly farm this specific weapon. It made it slightly easier to seek out that god roll, and with a weapon that has such high range, incredible damage drop off, and an almost perfectly vertical recoil pattern, it makes it an absolutely deadly weapon in pretty much any activity. Now that was the roundup of all the Sunset aggressive frame pulse rifles, and this leaves one weapon standing out on its own. This is currently viable in the game as things currently stand, and is not Sunset inside Destiny 2. And this comes in the form of Sacred Provenance. This is the only aggressive frame pulse rifle that's currently viable in the game, and is obtainable through the Garden of Salvation raid. Now when you compare this to the Blast Furnace, this has a range stat of 72 and a stability stat of 61, and whilst those are slightly lower, this has a recoil stat of 70, once again allowing for an almost perfectly vertical recoil pattern. Now unlike all the other aggressive frame pulse rifles that have 5 or 6 perks in their columns, this weapon only has 4, so whilst it might be slightly harder to get via a raid, it's slightly easier to get a better roll because of the limited amount of perks available. Now the Sacred Provenance has barrel options instead of sights, but can roll with things like high caliber rounds and ricochet rounds. It has a choice between rapid hit or outlaw in the first column and kill clip in the final column, allowing for an absolutely deadly combination. Now as we touched upon earlier in the video, with the launch of this season's seasonal artifact, pulse rifles are absolutely key this season. They are almost perfect when it comes to stunning unstoppable champions, which is ideal for endgame and aspirational pieces of content. Now whilst most of the time you might switch to a high impact pulse, it's important to remember there is still one aggressive frame out there that is viable in content available today. Now this weapon is only owned by 33% of all Guardians, and was introduced in Season 8 upon the launch of Shadowkeep. Now it's with that in mind, we're fast approaching the end of Year 4, the Year of Beyond Light, and have Witch Queen literally around the corner. But when you take into account the delays on Witch Queen and Beyond Light last year, we are now over 2 years in Destiny 2 since they last introduced an aggressive frame pulse. And it's with that in mind, it begs the question, did Bungie just forget, or are we likely to see aggressive frame pulse rifles again later in the future? Now it's with that in mind, if we look back to the Witch Queen reveal, Bungie revealed a lot of details about weapon crafting. This will be launching alongside Witch Queen and will allow us to craft the new Glaive, the first-person melee weapon in Destiny 2, alongside weapons from the Throne World, the raid, and also the new seasonal activity. Now Bungie did go on to say that new and reprised weapons will be added to weapon crafting over time, and do go on to show off some of the Black Armory weapons in the trailer. Now whilst we don't specifically see the Blast Furnace, we do see other popular Black Armory weapons. So whilst Bungie may not focus on specifically returning aggressive frame pulse rifles, they could return as part of weapon crafting later on in Witch Queen. But as always guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts. Did Bungie genuinely just forget about aggressive frame pulse rifles, or was their intention to return them to the game upon the launch of weapon crafting later in the year? Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. So there we have it guys, a good look at aggressive frame pulse rifles, the forgotten archetype inside Destiny 2. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to check out one of the 2 videos you see here in these cards for more Destiny 2 content. And if you want to keep up to date with everything to do with Destiny 2, be sure to hit subscribe as well. I'm going to jump back into the game as always guys, and I will catch you all again very soon.